The difference between men and boys is the price of their toys. It's a phrase that we toss around without thinking when a guy buys a boat or a motorcycle, or maybe the latest iPhone. But when I think about it, and I've given it some thought, it could be implied that men never grow up. Could that be? I suppose it could, but in this case, that doesn't hold true. These were the words of Doris Rowland, and they were meant as a compliment to her husband, Ross. As a boy, Ross Rowland had a hobby and a passion that continued through adulthood, and that was trains. As a man, his crowning accomplishment was the American Freedom Train, a 26-car steam-powered exhibit train that crisscrossed the United States between 1975 and 1976 as part of our country's bicentennial celebration. And now, as Paul Harvey would say, you know the rest of the story. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have heard the phrase, chivalry's dead? Raise your hands, let me see them. Good, most everybody in the audience. Now, how many of you believe that chivalry's dead? Okay, the ship is sinking. Would you like to know what I think? Good, because if you didn't, this was going to be an incredibly short talk. I would suggest that chivalry is not dead, but it is in a seriously deep coma. I'm not even sure that reviving chivalry as we understand it would serve us well or completely. You see, chivalry is not just about the actions, but also about the way the actions are responded to. We think of chivalry as opening doors, pulling out chairs, the gentleman on the sidewalk that places himself between traffic and the lady, even the Boy Scout that escorts the little old lady across the street. That's all well and good, but that's not enough. When you boil chivalry down, it is nothing more than respect. Respect wrapped in courtesy and good manners. Chivalry is defined as a combination of qualities expected of an ideal knight, especially courage, honor, courtesy, justice, and a readiness to help those in need. Courtesy dates back to the medieval ages, where knights not only fought battles, but they were expected to be ambassadors for their kings and queens. Not much has changed in that regard. When we go out, we are representatives of our families, our places of business, the organizations we're associated with, and when we're in that public eye, we represent them all. My parents used to say, "Don't forget where you came from," and I try not to every day. There was also a code that knights were expected to follow. To fight for all, the welfare of all, to protect God and His church, to at all times speak truth. 17 in all. And I find it interesting that of the 17, only 5 relate to combat. The other 12 have to do with chivalry. Perhaps that's why we expect a gentleman's behaviors to mirror that of a knight. Who do you think of when you think of a gentleman? For me, Tim Tebow comes to mind, a football player for University of Florida. He made history by being the first sophomore to ever win the Heisman Trophy in 2007. He had a career as a quarterback in the NFL, and now he runs his own foundation, whose mission is to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter day in their darkest hour of need. He's been mocked for his faith. He's been criticized for having a weak throwing arm. Who among us here hasn't faced a critic or two? Yet I have never seen him react out of anger or have an unkind word to say about anyone. He responds in knightly fashion with courage, honor, and courtesy that separates him from his critics. He's a classy young man, and we need more like him. We could also ask the question, who do you think of when you think of a lady? How about Princess Diana? Chivalry, if it goes both ways, meaning It's respect wrapped in courtesy and goodness. I think we can all agree upon that. Chivalry equals respect. Are we all on the same page? Good. So where did it go? I think life got busy. We have traded sit-down family dinners for fast food drive-thrus on the way to soccer practice and music lessons. We pay more attention to our phones than we do a person 2 feet from us. And I suspect that peer pressure has something to do with it. Do kids not think it's cool to be well-mannered in front of their friends? You could probably add to the list. All I know is I want chivalry back. We need it back. So how do we do that? Example and expectations. My dad was my example. He was consistent as the day is long, like a Swiss watch clicking away. Almost without exception, every morning when I got up when I was living at home, I would find him at the kitchen table with his coffee and reading his Bible. My dad was an EOR, an equal opportunity respecter. It didn't make any difference if they didn't respect him back. He taught us just to take that in stride. It's funny, there's this cubicle that we all get into sometimes where we push a button and we stand in the back with eyes forward. It's called an elevator. My dad was also an equal opportunity engager, so you may have met him. He'll strike up a conversation with anybody. Expectations. Those examples he set helped me set the expectations for my sons and my daughter. Maggie is my baby, 30 years old now, and has a baby of her own. Some of my fondest memories are daddy-daughter dates, where I would slip outside, come around to the front door, knock, and pick her up just like a proper date. I think it's important as a father that we set expectations for our daughters on how they should be treated. Now, I remember her first date in high school as well. I don't remember the young man's name, but we had a nice conversation while we were sitting on the sofa and I was cleaning my gun. Just kidding, I don't own a gun. But there she came bounding out of the bedroom with her naturally curly red hair and infectious smile, and they were off. They went down to the car, the young man hopped in his side of the car, and Maggie went to her side of the car and stood there. Eventually, he reached across, rolled down the window, and I don't know what exactly was said, but knowing Maggie the way I do, she probably said, "I'm accustomed to having the door open for me." Because he immediately got out of the car, opened her door, and then they were off for their adventure. We need examples like my dad set for me. We also need to set expectations like I set for my daughter, and then take this simple two-step process of sharing chivalry and making it visible. Is there anybody from Missouri out there today? Yes. Well, we know what you all would say. Don't tell me, show me. And that is exactly how we can get chivalry back. Set the example, set the expectation, and then, as Captain Picard would say from the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, engage, number one. Chivalry is something we need to treat like a legacy, something of value we have to leave behind. When did our world forget to say thank you and you're welcome? Reviving chivalry is a partnership that crosses gender and generational lines. It's never too early or too late to teach respect by showing respect. There's a section in our Declaration of Independence that talks about a new guard. And in that same section, there's a line that basically says, if you see something wrong, those that have the ability to take action also have the responsibility to take action. We can be that new guard that ushers chivalry back. You can set the example for the world. You can help reset the expectation way past a bow or a curtsy, and you can help leave a legacy. And it can all start with a simple please and thank you. I think it's time we updated our definition of chivalry, a combination of qualities expected of an ideal human being, especially courage, honor, courtesy, justice, and a readiness to help those in need. Won't you join me in this quest? Chivalry, the way we show respect. Thank you.